So, how do you really start to understand the world? Well, if you're a physicist, the first step is knowing how to measure it. Today, we're going to build that foundational toolkit, piece by piece, so we can master the art of measurement.
Here's what's on the docket. We'll kick things off with the absolute basics, then we'll level up our precision. After that, we'll tackle the tricky business of measuring time. And finally, we'll add two really powerful conceptual tools to our kit, scalars and vectors. Ready? Let's get into it. All right, first up, the essential tools we use to figure out the space objects take up, starting with good old length and volume.
I mean, this is the most fundamental question in physics, right? Before you can have any grand theories, you need data. And that data, it all starts with just simple, direct observation and measurement. So, where do we even begin? You begin with these. For most everyday jobs, a meter rule or a flexible measuring tape is exactly what you need. They're perfect for measuring straight lines, and with a tape, you can even measure the length around something curved. Simple, effective, and totally reliable. But here's the thing, even the simplest tools need the right technique. You have to watch out for something called parallax error. If you look at a ruler from an angle, the reading can actually look like it's shifted. So the key takeaway is this: always put your eye directly over the mark you're reading. It's a tiny detail, but it makes a huge difference in getting it right. Okay, so we've got length down. Now how does that help us with volume? Well, for a nice regular box, it's a piece of cake, length times width times height. But what about something weirdly shaped, like a pebble? You can't exactly use a ruler on that. You need a much cleverer trick. And this is that trick. It's called the displacement method. You just start with a known amount of water in a measuring cylinder. Then you gently slide your irregular object in. The water level goes up, right? Well, the amount it goes up by is the exact volume of your object. So simple, so smart, and incredibly useful. All right, time to upgrade our toolbox, because sometimes a ruler just won't cut it. We need to be able to measure things that are incredibly tiny, and we need to do it with a much higher degree of precision. Yeah, exactly. I mean, just imagine trying to measure the thickness of a single strand of hair or a thin piece of wire with a normal ruler. It's impossible. The marks on the ruler are just way too far apart. So, what do you do when your tool just isn't precise enough for the job? Well, you get a more precise instrument. See, precision is all about the smallest measurement a tool can reliably make. Your ruler might get you down to the nearest millimeter, maybe half a millimeter if you're really careful, but for that wire, we need to measure in hundredths of a millimeter. And this is the tool you need, the micrometer screw gauge. This thing is just a masterpiece of engineering. It lets us measure tiny little thicknesses with unbelievable precision, often down to 1/100th of a millimeter. Now, reading one looks way more complicated than it is. It's actually a pretty simple process. First, you read the main scale on the barrel to get your whole millimeters. Next, you peek to see if a half millimeter mark is showing past that main number. And finally, you find the line on the rotating part, the thimble, that lines up perfectly with the center line. Add that value on, and boom, you've got yourself a super precise measurement. Okay, let's switch gears. We've talked about measuring space. Now let's talk about measuring time. And this comes with its own unique set of problems, especially when you're dealing with really short intervals. The big problem here is us. It's human error. Think about trying to time just one swing of a pendulum with a stopwatch. The tiny delay between when you see it happen and when your thumb actually hits the button, that delay can be a huge chunk of the actual time you're trying to measure. Your reading is just not going to be very reliable. So how do we fix this? Simple. We measure multiples. Instead of timing one swing, time, say, 20 or 30 of them all at once. That little reaction time error you have at the start and the stop gets spread out over that much longer period. Then you just divide the total time by 20, and the error becomes tiny. You end up with a much more accurate average time for a single swing. All right, we've talked about the physical tools. Now it's time to add two conceptual tools to our box. We'll start with the things that you can describe with just a single number. These are what we call scalars. So what's a scalar? It's really just a quantity that only needs a magnitude, a size, to be complete. It tells you how much of something there is, but it says absolutely nothing about its direction.
And you use these all the time, probably without even thinking about it. When you say the temperature is 20 degrees, or a trip took 15 minutes, or a car is going 50 miles per hour, you're using scalars. You've given all the information you need, just a number and a unit.
But a lot of the time, just a number isn't enough info.
For our last tool, we absolutely have to account for direction. And that, my friends, is where vectors come in. A vector basically takes that scalar idea of how much and adds a second critical piece of information: which way. It has to have both magnitude and direction. If you leave out the direction, you're only telling half the story. Think about it. If you're giving someone directions, you can't just say, go for 2 miles. It's useless, right? You have to say, go for 2 miles north. That's a vector. Or a force. A push isn't just about how hard you push, it's about which way you're pushing. And this is the perfect illustration of the difference. So imagine you walk along that winding blue path. The total distance you actually traveled, your step counter, might say 10 kilometers. That's a scalar. But your displacement, the vector, is just the straight line path from your start point to your end point. In this case, 5 kilometers to the east. See? 2 totally different descriptions of the exact same journey. Now, because vectors have direction, you can't just add them up like regular numbers. If you walk 4 kilometers east and then turn and walk 3 kilometers north, you've walked a distance of 7 kilometers. But that's not where you are relative to your start. To find your final position, your displacement, you draw the vectors head to tail, like this. Then you draw a new vector, we call it the resultant, from the very beginning to the very end. The length of that new arrow is your final distance from the start, and its angle tells you the direction. So there you have it. We've filled up our basic toolbox. We have instruments for space, techniques for time, and the super important concepts of scalars and vectors. So the next time you describe something moving or a force being applied, ask yourself, is a number enough? Or do I also need to point the way?